Hey guys, it's Gala Avery from the Video Archives podcast. While we're shuffling tapes and gearing up for season 2, Quentin and Roger have sent me on a mission all around Los Angeles and beyond to talk with filmmakers, photographers, VHS collectors, and other interesting characters. What are we going to be talking about? Well, that's up for my guests to decide. On the Gala show, guests have 30 minutes to talk about whatever topic they want you to know about. Filmmakers like Josh Miller will tell us how he found his tribe, while writers like Larry Karaszewski will let you know what he considers to be a true LA movie. VHS collectors like Connor Holt make an argument for the genre of pirate movies, while writers like Josh Olson are going to let us in on what he considers to be right-wing cinema. Actors like Percy Hines White will share his love of outsider art, while animators and cartoonist Sierra Nielli will reminisce on his experiences of growing up in a Philly pizza shop and how this time in his life influenced him to pick up a pencil. So, join me every Thursday for a new guest with an entirely new topic. The Gala show premieres October 26th. Available wherever you get your podcasts. On this episode of the Video Archives podcast, we have a customer. Joe Dante, director of Piranha, Inner Space, and Gremlins, joins Quentin and Roger in the store for a film that he believes deserves more recognition. A forgotten film from a little-known director, The Fool Killer takes place shortly after the Civil War. A young Southern boy has run away from his foster home, and as he wanders the countryside, he meets various odd characters along the way. One of them tells him the story of the vengeful Fool Killer. Quentin, Roger, and Joe discuss the history of the film, the striking performances of the actors, and the director's determination to push the boundaries on the screen. Next up, they've got their own brand of medicine. Quentin, Roger, and Joe visit the hospital where patients always come first, in The Young Nurses. In this new world picture, we follow 3 nurses and a candy striper as they navigate their day-to-day activities inside of the hospital. We've got everything from fun romps on the beach with a sailboat captain, an overworked nurse who just wants to get things done, and stopping a gang-related drug epidemic. Quentin, Roger, and Joe discuss the genre of nurse films, the relationship between Julie and Roger Corman, Joe's involvement with the film, and the scarcity of all-black orgy scenes in 70s sexploitation. This movie will raise your heart rate and send your temperature sky high. And lastly, let's spend a night in the countryside with Susan, Sandra, Olga, and Julie. In the film, My Nights with Susan, Sandra, Olga, and Julie. Anton has been tasked with retrieving Susan, a famous fashion model, and bringing her back to the French Riviera for a job. Susan has other ideas. She's chosen a hermit's life on a dilapidated farm and has no plans of returning to her previous jet-set modeling life. When Anton arrives at the farm, he becomes enchanted with the strange characters that live with Susan. Soon, he becomes caught in a web and uncovers all of the house's mysteries. I'm Gala Avery, and joining us now, here's Quentin Tarantino and Roger Avery.
And thank you, Gala. And this is Quentin Tarantino.
And Roger Avery.
And this is the Video Archives podcast. And as Gala so charmingly mentioned, yes, indeed, we do have a customer today. And it's the famed director, Joe Dante.
Well, thank you. I'm here to learn how podcasts are done.
Yeah, you've had this extremely successful podcast for the last 3 years, if not 5 years, with that you co-host with a genuine Video Archives customer.
That's true.
Wait, really?
Yes.
Yes, he used to come in all the time.
Yeah, no, he totally came in. I knew who he was because he worked on the crew of Canon movies at that time.
Yeah.
At the height,
that would have placed him in a very
height of our
revered position.
At the height of our Canon obsession.
Yeah.
And so we would like talk, so what Canon movie are you working on this week? You know, and then he would tell him, we would talk about it. And yeah, no, he was great.
But no, he was the highlight of his professional life. Josh Olson, we're talking
about Josh Olson. Josh Olson. All right, so it's like, yeah, so our 2 famous customers are Josh Olson and Danny Strong.
Yeah.
Danny Strong, the screenwriter who used to come in when he was 12. So we talked to Joe about the 3 movies, about watching 3 films. He says, well, do I get a say in any of these? I go, well, not really. But he offered 3 anyway. And one that I was actually wanted to screen, because I still haven't watched it yet, but we didn't have it. And that is Confessions of an Opium Eater with
I'm working on it.
Vincent Price. But one of the ones that he had mentioned is a film that I had always heard of. I've never seen. I'm not always heard of, but I've heard of. And we had a copy of it in the Eddie Brandt's collection, which is the film The Fool Killer.
The Fool Killer's bound to get you sure. I would be a bit surprised if he wasn't lurking outside right now. He's waiting to pounce on you.
Who?
Who? The Fool Killer. That's who.
Who's the Fool Killer?
He's a great tall fella. 8 feet tall, I reckon, tall and skinny. And he goes around, he carries a chopper so sharp. So sharp, it cuts through a fence post just like a cigar.
What's the chopper for?
For chopping pools, of course.
Now, what's he want to go and do that for?
Well, that's his line of work, boy. That's all. That is his line of work.
A rare print of Servando González's The Fool Killer with co-hit The Young Nurses will be playing on 16mm for one night at the New Beverly Cinema on Monday, February 6th. 7165 Beverly Boulevard, Los Angeles, California, 90036. For more information, visit thenewbev.com. The New Beverly Cinema. Always on film.
And it stars a very young Edward Albert, later from Butterflies Are Free, but this is like when he was 12. Anthony Perkins, Salome Jens, Dana Claire, Henry Hull. It's like, what, 67 or 66?
65.
Well, it was shot in 63.
Yeah.
Oh, it's shot in 63. Okay.
In Knoxville, Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't make much of a ripple when it came out. The producer named Eli Landau had a company called Landau Unger. And he was doing a bunch of pictures with mainly New York talent, one of which turned out to be The Pawnbroker, which was written by the same writers who wrote The Fool Killer. But The Fool Killer was in gestation or in media res or something between 1963 and 1965 because it didn't come out anywhere. I think they had one engagement in Tennessee to invite the crew and the locals, and then zilch, nothing. And so I found it for rent at Films Incorporated, which was a 16mm house when I was in college. And I noticed that it had never played New York, it never played Philadelphia, it never played anywhere. So I thought, well, I'll have the Philadelphia premiere of the movie. We'll rent it in 16mm, and I happen to have a great 3-sheet that I had found at National Screen. And so we had the Philadelphia premiere of this Hollywood movie, and people liked it, but it didn't exactly end up on the radar. So over the years, I've tried to proselytize about this picture, which I really like. And in fact, I've been looking for a trailer for it to do it on Trailers from Hell for forever. But I think there aren't any because it never played.
But now, is there any indication with your 3-sheet that you found or about where it could have played, where that paper could have been used and what?
No, it was all brand new stuff with no pinholes in it, nothing like that. I mean, these were mint. And never used. And eventually the picture was sold to American International, and they tried to re-release it as A Violent Journey, which is the title it's on IMDb. And that apparently played nowhere either. But one thing they did do is they sold it to television. So the print that I bought said American International Television, then came to the movie. And then in 1969, apparently they recut the movie because there's a lot of odd editing in the picture. There's some upside down shots, which I guess producers didn't like. And so they recut it and opened it in New York to no interest whatsoever.
AIP still?
Anybody. No, this was Landau himself.
Oh, okay.
And so to this day, the only time it's ever really been seen widely is in this VHS that you found, which is from Republic Home Video. And it's a VHS transfer. It doesn't look great. But it's, frankly, my 16mm print looked better, I think. But I've always tried to interest people in this picture. But then once I get them interested, they go, where can I see it? And it's like, well, I don't know. It's not. I talked to Criterion. I said, you guys should put this out. It's really an unknown movie. It's a Mexican director. He's got a following, even though he only did 2 pictures that were released in America. And you guys could, but nobody's interested. And it's very frustrating, which is why I'm glad that you chose it out of the ones that I gave you.
No, it was like, oh, well, I'd heard about the film before. It's got a really cool cast, and it's also, and it fits into the whole criteria of I haven't seen it and Roger hasn't seen it, and then you'd be interesting to talk about it. Do you want to do the honors and read the back of the box?
The back of the box. Is the back of the box accurate?
I haven't read it.
They rarely are.
Yeah. You can read it. It can be inaccurate, and then you can criticize it afterwards.
No, let me see what it says. Well, it starts, Anthony Perkins joins a runaway boy. Well, that's not quite the way it works.
I agree with
The runaway boy.
Okay,
joins
you're
Anthony
already
Perkins.
getting way too literal. You're going to be very unhappy with the way these normally go if that's your problem.
Mistreated and misunderstood, George, a 12-year-old orphan, runs away from his foster home. Hopping freight trains, George follows the open road to misadventure and the companionship of Dirty Jim, a crusty old kindred spirit. Jim mesmerizes young George with a fantastic tale of the Fool Killer, a mythical murderer who stands 8 feet tall. Separated from Jim by sickness and fate, George finds another friend in Milo, a tall Civil War veteran with amnesia and PTSD, obviously. Though the pair share a carefree fellowship of the highway vagabond, George slowly suspects that Milo is in fact the real-life axe-wielding murderer of Dirty Jim's horrific tale. It says here that it's an enchanting lyrical drama and a tense, gripping thriller. Remarkable entertainment for all ages. It says here.
That's actually a better description of the plot than you almost ever get around these boxes.
Well, maybe somebody actually watched it.
Yeah.
But what the movie has is it's a series of he runs into these picaresque, weird characters. The first one he runs into is Dirty Jim, who is played by Henry Hull, who is a veteran actor. He's the original Werewolf of London in 1935. And he was in Lifeboat, and he worked for Fritz Lang. And I mean, he's been in a lot of movies, and he's got a very distinctive voice. And you could really tell when you see him.
Master of the World. I think of growing up. That and Werewolf of London.
And this was his next to last movie. Yeah, his last movie was The Chase, the Arthur Penn movie. All the scenes with him they're funny. Yeah. They're really clever. His rapport with the kid is quite good. And then little George he runs away, as he tends to do, and he gets taken in by a family that has this weird little girl named Blessing Angelina Fanshawe. And she has a boil where she sits down. And that's why she ever gets spanked. He wants to run away, and she helps him. And once he runs away, he runs into Tony Perkins, who is not in Norman Bates mode exactly, but is obviously troubled. But it seems pleasant enough, except that he has these war flashbacks, which are done pretty effectively with a camera tied to his head, and he spins around and whatever. And then the other set piece in the movie is the kid wants to go to a revival meeting, and Tony Perkins doesn't like that kind of thing. And so he suggests he doesn't do that. But then they do anyway. And the preacher, played by Arnold Moss, who is another actor who is pretty familiar from his greatest role was as Robespierre's second in command, Fouchot, in The Black Book, which is a terrific movie, Anthony Mann. And he is the preacher, and he preaches a lot, and saliva drips.
No, he's fantastic in that.
And it's a really intense scene, and of course he mesmerizes this entire room full of hicks, basically, and then ends up getting murdered by I guess who. And so it's not so much the plot of the movie, which is based on a book by Helen Eustace. It's the sort of the way the story is told. It's very Night of the Hunter. It's the most Night of the Hunter movie that isn't Night of the Hunter.
Well, one of the things that really kind of grabbed me with it was the fact that it does have a very literary kind of feel, and it falls into a literary Dickensian literary aspect of you have a young protagonist, and then you're following their odyssey, you're following their journey, and so one step of the leg of the journey takes them to this character, and then this character fills it up for 20 minutes or 30 minutes or for 3 chapters or 4 chapters, and then they move on to another character, and that helps take the narrative. George is really terrific in it. He's playing in what appears to be his first performance, the lead role by Edward Albert, who would later become famous in the 70s. He'll play the blind Donnie guy in Butterflies Are Free, which I've always thought he was terrific in that movie.
And Galaxy of Terror.
Oh, later eventually he gets to Galaxy of Terror.
When people are on their career downslope, you don't necessarily want to hold that up as their greatest achievement.
I happen to like Galaxy of Terror. So.
I know. He had a way to go, all right? The interesting thing about him is actually I showed Butterflies Are Free to an old girlfriend, and she liked it so much that I made a point to watch 40 Carats, which is like his follow-up movie with the same director. And I actually ended up liking that. I never thought I'd never seen it, and I actually thought that was actually pretty good, especially because I liked him. He was a good lead in there. But then after that, I remember him for like just the slew of TV movies.
He was a staple.
Especially the ABC movies of the week. I think he married Kate Jackson for a while, and they did a bunch of TV movies, like Killer Bees, with directed by Curtis Harrington.
Yeah.
Now, the period you're talking about, the Galaxy of Terror period, that is like right towards the end of the 70s, where out of the blue, after kind of being on TV shows and guesting on this and TV movies, all of a sudden he made a play for being a leading man again. However, it was the time of Tom Selleck, and so he grew a mustache that made him look like a poor man's Tom Selleck. But in this guise, he actually did about 4 movies where it's just him being full-on Tom Selleck leading man, and one of them is Galaxy of Terror. But he's a fantastic young lead in this movie. I mean, he helps give the movie gravitas.
It conveys this kind of extraordinary depth.
Well, he's an intense little fucking boy.
Yeah, he turns into like a cipher, and I mean the fact that this is Civil War.
He makes the movie intense because he's an intense little boy.
And he breaks the fourth wall and talks to you through the whole movie.
Yeah, he does.
Which is unusual.
Yeah. And he's mesmerizing in the revival tent scene. You know, when he just gets caught up in the whole hysteria of preaching fire and brimstone and he's wonderful in that scene. There's also a neat aspect to that sequence too, from the time period where it takes place, where they see, the revival house, they set up the revival tent, and people are coming from all around, and the kid, he wants to see it. They were like, I want to see it. And Milo was like, nah, you don't believe in what those people say. But the kid is responding like it's a movie. No, it's something to do. We're fucking bored to death, all right? They just put up a tent. People are showing for all around. I mean, it sounds like there's something interesting going on there. We got nothing to do anyway. Let's go. And so he relents. Okay, we'll go to the movies. And it kind of was a movie. Because it's not like there's this like wonderful religious epiphany that can survive the morning. Forget about like 2 days later in the course of the movie. But during the moment of the tent meeting, he's right there with tears running out of his eyes, clasping his hands together. It's a really, really terrific sequence.
Yeah.
It's actually, for me, it was actually one of the most disappointing moments. Not the sequence. Sequence is amazing. It's that he's become a fool like everybody else in the team.
Yeah.
And it portends his fall, basically, in some ways. And so it's kind of like it's a disastrous moment.
Well, but I don't look at like I hear your point. I think they make the point that he shrugs it off so readily the next day that, no, he's not becoming a religious fool. All right. It's like a movie. He just got caught up. That's what the guy's job is to catch you up, to entertain you, make you forget about your problems, for that hour or hour and a half, and make you think that you got the Lord, for the course of the night. But I'm going to do everything different starting tomorrow.
But Quentin, why do you think they make such an impressive point that he's overwhelmed by it? Because I think it's more than that. It's just a movie. I think there's an implication that he has absolution and saving that he needs within him. He keeps talking about his parents. He's a cipher. We don't know what happened to his parents. Are his parents dead? Did they die during the Civil War? I mean, this presumably takes place when the actual Fool Killer was around, which 1869 or so. And so,
well, I think at one point in the movie he tells what happened to his parents. No, at one point he tells what happened to his parents, and you're kind of meant to believe it.
Well, he
kind of hums and haws about my
he's
parents.
Ambiguous, but
he's already
they
lied
both died.
about what happened before.
Yeah.
And then when he finally has to come clean, and now, son, tell me, are your parents dead? Yes, they're dead, but he doesn't say how.
Oh, okay.
And so for me, the more in fact, this didn't come to me until just now, listening to you talk about this sequence. There's a reason he's in there weeping for God in that moment and getting lost in the rapture of salvation that's being presented to him. And it's because he's perhaps also the fool killer.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I'm just throwing out a hypothetical.
No, that's actually that's an interesting.
The reason his parents are dead is because he killed them.
I think that's an interesting hypothesis. I would have to say
I'm only 70% into that hypothesis, by the way.
I understand. No, you're raising it up the flag and seeing if anybody salutes. I appreciate that.
Because otherwise, why make such a powerful point of that moment in particular and his being lost in it?
I still can go with my
Anthony Perkins's character, who is not wanting to be there, who looks at everyone in that room like they're a fool being drawn in like moths to the flame.
But if you're going to go with the idea that maybe he's the fool killer, as far as a
fool killer,
a fool killer, he hatcheted his parents to death, then I think that there would be more in the character to maybe suggest that.
Well, his finding a family that is going to take care of him, and then suddenly they're like, well, no, we're going to send him back. Wasn't that we're going to send you back to where you're?
Well, that's the first family.
That's the one with the weird little girl.
They're going to send him back, but the second family that he meets are nice, and they want it. It's the old cliche: "You're just as old as our son would have been."
Right.
You know, and so he's going to take the place of their kid.
His relationship with them is normal enough that I think it clouds the idea that he actually he axe murdered his parents.
I used to have a copy of the book, but I don't anymore.
The scene that's the scene for the movie to me is Henry Hull's monologue, like his 3-page monologue where he describes.
It's the most Quentin character of this movie.
It's great.
He belongs in a.
And it's just that it's going for this rural mountain folk poetry. And then the characters talk in this real primitive, but yet poetic kind of way. It's almost like Georgia, Arkansas, Elizabethan, to some degree or another. And I like movies, and there's actually a little subgenre of movies that kind of fit into this. You mentioned Night of the Hunter fits into that. Renoir's The Southerner fits into that. Actually, Walter Hill even tries to fit into that in The Long Riders. There's kind of this almost poetic-y mountain folkloric mountain talk in the way they talk. None of them do it as truly poetically, except maybe A Night of the Hunter as the Fool Killer. Yeah. And especially in Henry Hull's just mesmerizing reading of the legend. Do you want to say what? No, you've got the legend.
Well, in a nutshell, the legend, which came about around post-Civil War, when they were personifying all sorts of characterizations of America. Mm-hmm. They would become personified as actual characters. And one of them was the Fool Killer. And the Milton Chronicle, newspaper back east, began doing anonymous stories that were supposedly relayed from Jesse Holmes, who was relaying his stories, confessions of being the Fool Killer. Okay, so is he real, or was this just a way for them to discuss the ills of the day, in post-Civil War America? This is around 1869. Apparently, in one of his confessions, he meets a guy who tells him he's found this woman. He's going to marry her because her aunt has all this money and she's sure to leave the world soon. She's going to die soon. And so the quote is, "As I put my hand on his collar, I told him I'm about the last man you want to have any business with. You would fare better to thrust your head into the angry lion's mouth or to tilt your pate against forked lightning. That he was my property and mine alone. You are," said I, "pretending to be monstrously in love with a young lady, and it seems that you love her aunt's property more." And thereupon I pitched into him with the savageness of skinning skunks, mauled him about right. So it was this kind of thing where he would...
but that's not necessarily a fool. That's just a crook.
Well, he looks as, I think that's his definition of a fool, is anybody who's abusing the laws of civility, especially in the Deep South, which at that time, you can imagine everything has collapsed. Mm-hmm. And you've got the carpetbaggers from the north and the leftovers from, I can't even barely begin to imagine what it must have been like in post-Civil War, except my aunt, Myrta Lockett Avery, actually wrote a book called Virginia Girl in the Civil War, and actually discusses it and talks about it.
Really?
Talks about it a little bit. Talks about how what it was like. I mean,
just unscrupulous fiancés and
well, just everything, all of civilization briefly falling apart. People who were never allowed to drink suddenly drinking. Slaves staying and slaves hopping on the master's horse and taking off. You know, it's she just describes the chaos of being in Richmond, you know, after it's destroyed, and what the South was like. And it's just a broken place. And I think we see the repercussions of that to this day.
And we see, when we see it in the movie.
Well, everyone is, they're damaged in the movie, and I think seeking salvation in some ways. And also people are, I mean, they've lost their child. They said they lost their child.
Yeah.
I mean, he was probably a soldier in the Civil War.
Well, it has that, same thing as like The Beguiled. It has that
mix
of Mark Twain and Ambrose Bierce.
That's very accurate.
I mean, they're different in many ways, but I was feeling like the same kind of feeling I had when I first saw The Swimmer, when I saw this film, in that it's kind of episodic. You're traveling with him through these various chapters. And as you're traveling through these chapters, you're realizing it's not really about the journey, the external journey. It's about his internal journey that he's on. And I felt that about this film as well. And also it reminded me a lot of those, I can't remember his last name, Valerian Borowitz.
Nobody could pronounce it.
Yeah.
Borowczyk, I think is it.
Yeah, Borowczyk, yeah.
Well, I do like movies that have an enigmatic young man, like in 12 or 13 or something like that. An enigmatic young man that is kind of goes on an adult's journey. And then that child actor has to give an adult performance. He has to give a performance that is more in line with Robert Mitchum than it is asking Johnny Whitaker or somebody like that.
That's not an easy thing to pull off.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
that could come across really super cheesy really easily.
No, but the thing about it is, he makes it a serious movie the movie is a serious movie, but he helps make it. You take the movie seriously due to Edward Albert's gravitas as a character. And that way, he very much reminds me of, to this day, I love Griffin O'Neill's performance in The Escape Artist. The Escape Artist doesn't quite work. At a certain point, you can tell there was editing problems, but his performance is fantastic.
He's incredible.
He just carries the movie.
And he does all the magic tricks.
Yes.
Like right there.
That's the Robert Mitchum young kid performance.
Wearing that little suit.
I don't know. The suit, just that suit through the whole time. And, but Edward Albert is, actually is required to do much more. And, there's an aspect about the movie that I really, really appreciated was, what's his name? George. All right. There's a thing about George where even this entire story, this entire tale is kind of similar to, David Carradine's quest on Kung Fu as Kwai Chang Caine. Yeah. George is kind of a Caine kind of figure. Almost every episode, Caine could have totally met a Henry Hill.
Yeah.
Henry Hill character. And then he could have totally met the Salam Jen's character. And he could have totally met that little girl. And he could have met this kid.
He could have gone to the Revival House as well.
He could have met the Revival House. He could have met Anthony Perkins. I mean, that's just like 5 episodes of Kung Fu right there.
Have you ever wondered what the lead singer of Smash Mouth, Zach Goody, feels about new versus old guys in music and cinema? Or how photographer Toasty Cakes makes his cinematic discoveries? What about the opinion of Rotten Tomatoes editor Jacqueline Coley and what she considers to be the new Hollywood shift of the streaming era? Join me, reporter on the beat Gala Avery, as I get to the bottom of these very questions. Starting on October 26th, I have a new guest on the mic every week. Yes, every Thursday, hear your favorite filmmakers, photographers, actors, models, and more talk about a topic that is near and dear to their heart that they want you to know about. You'd be surprised at what people are interested in. The Gala Show premieres October 26th with new episodes every Thursday, available wherever you get your podcasts.
We're back and joined by Gala Avery. Hi, Gala.
Hey, Quentin. Hey, Roger.
Hey there.
And hello, Joe Dante. I'm sure everyone says this when they meet you, but I'm a huge fan. And I feel really lucky to be sitting at this table with you right now. So I said that just to get that out of the way.
I raised her on your movies, so
Yeah. My friends actually
this is the product that you're looking
used
at.
to call me Gizmo. So anyway, but yeah,
I look at her and it was all worth it.
Oh, thank you. Anyway, the Fool Killer. As you guys talked about the kid in this movie, Edward Alberts, what an amazing performance that he gives. Normally, like, when there's child actors, including Sydney Ann Richards, who plays Blessing, you think, okay, there's like these kids on screen, like, oh my God, like, I have to sit through kids. No, these kids are actually, I think, in my opinion, what make the movie.
Yeah.
I think his performance is so good, and her performance, she's actually my favorite character that they run into. I love her.
Of course.
Of course. It's totally me. But I love when she says, it's like you're getting mushy on me.
Yeah.
And then when he runs away and she's like, oh, he didn't even turn back. He could have at least looked back at me. They were such like special little moments from child actors that you don't always get. And I liked it. Now, the voiceover, I love voiceover in movies. And I know a lot of people kind of groan at voiceover, but it's done so well. And it's no surprise to me because the director, Servando González, he also did The Scapular, which I'm not sure if you guys have seen, but
I've seen Scapular.
The Scapular, that movie employs really excellent just cinematography in general, and there's voiceover in it also that just works really well.
He's such an extraordinary director. There's animation in that film that is like, you look at that animation and like, I don't mean to toot my own horn, but it's like something I would have done in, and I did do in Killing Zoe. That's like, there's animation. He does all sorts of crazy camera work. He's doing all sorts of wild narrative structure. Frankly, after watching all of the Mexican directors we've been, watching on this, I'm just like thinking how amazing and rich, like Mexican cinema is.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean,
but this particular director is criminally unknown.
He is.
It's unreal how unknown he is.
I haven't seen the other movies you're talking about. When I saw the opening credits, I was like, oh, this person, all these like recognizable names. He like. Who the fuck is that? All right, when the director's name showed up.
I cried in El Scapular when he's remembering the woman. I don't want to give away the scene, but when he starts remembering, because of the music, this woman he's in love with, it's so visually striking and surprising. You just can't believe that they're going there, and it's breathtaking. And that's what he's doing in Fool Killer also. He's doing things like talking to the camera and utilizing all these narrative tricks and beating his own narrative drum. And I can believe that the producers were ripping their hair out because shots were upside down and things like that. They always rip their hair out at things like that.
Great camera work in it. I mean, just wonderful shots. You go, how did he do that?
I mean,
well, the scene with Anthony Perkins when he's rolling, and I was watching, I was thinking, whoa, like this is a camera that has actual film in it. Like it's not like some like little iPhone or like some digital camera.
And to do that, you have to build a wheel to put the camera in, and a wheel that will hold Anthony Perkins and strap him in so that they can both roll at the same time.
Yeah.
And that's like a Remy Julien trick.
All I can say is that I did meet the producer, Eli Landau, at some function years later. And I told him that how he'd done some good work. He did the American Film Theater movies. He did a lot of really good movies. But I said, my favorite movie that you've ever done is The Fool Killer. And he looked at me and he put his hand to his head. And he said, The Fool Killer. And all I could think of was, I guess it was, quote, a troubled shoot. And then it was obviously a troubled post-production situation. And I guess they probably didn't make any money at all. And so he's just never thinks about it.
We didn't make any money. And I made sure that guy never worked again in the United States.
He didn't.
I know. That's the thing. That's the crime.
And I wish that more of his movies were available because, I mean, The Scapular is available. You can rent that on streaming. Fool Killer, you got to go to YouTube if the video is still up. And it's in like this terrible less than 480p quality. Or you get a VHS tape. If you can find one, it was... I'll talk about that later. It was difficult to track
there's
down.
a site called Cave of Forgotten Films.
By the way, I think VHS...
Cave of Forgotten Films.
Which has pretty decent quality stuff. And very obscure, some of it. But that's always worth checking.
By the way, I think VHS is 640 by 480. And so I think it is actually 480.
So whatever I'm seeing, but I must be seeing some kind of compressed,
when transferred. If you're looking
compressed
line
VHS,
by line,
yeah.
So.
And speaking of the camera work in this, the DP that worked on The Fool Killer is Alex Phillips Jr., which you'll know from The Devil's Reign.
Yes, yes, Devil's Reign.
Also, Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia, which is
No Devil's Reign.
No, Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia is my favorite peck and paw. Jack Hill's, okay, I know you're going to, whatever. We'll get into that later. Jack Hill Sorceresses and Video Archive's favorite Demonoid.
Your guys disagreeing on things both relieves stress on me and is kind of like, I think, a favorite of people to listen to. You guys like bickering.
Gigantic pronouncements. The greatest James Bond movie of all time is The Man with the Golden Gun. The greatest Bond movie of all time.
I said my favorite.
But why is The Man with the Golden Gun your favorite?
Oh, because of Knick Knack.
Because of Knick Knack.
Because I love Knick Knack. He loves to watch. Yeah. But The Fool Killer, I mean, the shots in it are amazing. Like we talked about Anthony Perkins rolling on the hill, but also when Anthony Perkins first gets revealed, how it does that like dump, bump, 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 like
the pop cuts.
The pop cuts into his eyes.
Yeah, same axis.
It's like startling and kind of creepy.
And the shot that goes through the door.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that amazing
they come down the
pullback.
stairs.
Oh yeah.
But also even just like where there's a shot where it's just nothing, where he's just capturing action, like them chasing a pig around Dirty Jim. Is that what his name? Dirty.
Oh my God.
Around the house. I mean, just imagine that day on set. Yeah. Like that's okay, what are we doing now? Oh, we're chasing the pig around on set. That's an amazing scene.
Dirty Jim Jellyman, which is like the coolest name of like some backwoods old man that you could find. But I can't get over the fact that he tells him the story of the Fool Killer because he wants to sweep the floor. Like, I can't get over that. That's the entire reason why we get the Fool Killer story is because the kid tries to do one good thing.
It's because you're being a fool.
Yeah. You're just plain old fool. And he breaks the broom.
I'll break that broom.
But like, you want to clean the floor? Let me tell you the story about the Fool Killer. And then the rest of the movie, this kid is like doing misbehaving things. But like the one time he really like...
Hey, you know what? Maybe it's a metaphor for the Deep South at that time. The wife is dead and gone. The guy is doing whatever he wants now. He's not going to clean up anything. And don't you even think about cleaning this place up.
But I think the connection between the kid and Dirty Jim Jellyman is actually really sweet. Like them, like the whole montage they have.
Perhaps a little too sweet.
No. I thought I could go there, but I didn't. And I was glad about that.
Amazingly, thankfully didn't.
They have like a real genuine like father-son connection in those moments, or like uncle-nephew.
Well, he meets him in an outhouse.
Yeah.
No, but there's
hands down.
No, but there's a sweet thing that's revealed through the narrative. You know, where first the kid is like, "Well, look, I'm not saying I'm gonna stay the whole night. I got to get going." And you go, "Oh, you're gonna leave already?" Okay, well, look, I can stay for a couple of days, I guess, you know. Okay, fine. A couple of days, we'll have a good time. It'll be great. You know, and then it cuts to them makes a narrative cut and you realize he's been there for like 2 weeks or 3 weeks, you know. And it's just charming and it's sweet.
Also, it introduced me to González as this amazing director, and I've only been able to locate this movie on YouTube, which I hope the video is still up for everyone to go watch. And then The Scapular. And the rest of his movies, I'm having like such a pain in my butt trying to track
very
down.
hard to find.
They're very hard to find. And it's a real, in my opinion, it's a loss.
And I actually, one thing I was going to add, I think I didn't look it up on the internet or anything, but I think Alex Phillips, the cinematographer, he did a whole series, I think, of Canon movies. I think he worked a lot with J. Lee Thompson. I think he did Firewalker or something.
Oh, great.
Okay.
So if you guys want to watch this movie, which you should, because it's not only recommended by me and Quentin and Roger, but also by Joe Dante. I mean, who doesn't want to?
Curated.
Come on.
Curated
by Joe Dante.
Yeah, this is a must-see.
It's available on YouTube right now. If you are lucky enough to pick up a VHS, I was able to pick up mine. It's the same one that Quentin has from Eddie Brandt's. I was able to get mine for $20 from a store called Video Nerd at 1625 East Irving Place in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. They are an online retailer that has tons of VHS. They're on Facebook. And they have so many rare titles. They have so many Paragon tapes. I couldn't believe it.
Oh, wow, cool.
And I searched so hard to find this VHS tape. And this person pulled through. So thank you so much, Video Nerd. And I will hold my tape dearly once I have it.
Such a nerd.
Yay!
Meet today's women. Liberated, beautiful, and ready for action. They're the young nurses, and they're growing up fast.
It's the candy striper's job to make the patients stay in the hospital more pleasant.
This is not what we mean by pleasant.
It was pleasant, wasn't it?
Yes, can you help this man? Got a bad case of the blues.
The young nurses. Join them. All you need is a private room.
The Young Nurses with co-hit The Fool Killer will be playing on 35mm film for one night at the New Beverly Cinema on Monday, February 6th. 7165 Beverly Boulevard, Los Angeles, California, 90036. For even more information and tickets, visit thenewbev.com. The New Beverly Cinema. Always on film.
And we're back, and we're on to our second film, which is from New World Pictures, The Young Nurses, brought out on Charter Entertainment, which Charter Entertainment was the special division line inside of Embassy Video. And
it was their Lexus.
Yeah, I don't know exactly how it worked, but at some point in the 80s with video out there, the New World catalog got sliced in half between Warner Brothers Home Video and Embassy Home Video. And this is like one of their later video releases. So this got knocked over to Charter. But I actually like the Charter logo quite a bit. I like it at the beginning of the movie. I like it on the box. I like
the video graphic that comes up.
I like this. In fact, I like this a lot better than the Embassy video graphic, and then the white Embassy box with just the catalog square in the middle. I wanted to watch it. I wanted to bring it onto this episode for a couple of reasons. One, I really liked the nurse cycle of movies that the New World Picture did. It's probably my favorite of their series of films. But also, I wanted to talk about New World Pictures with Joe being here, but not necessarily pick one of the classic ones like Death Race 2000 and talk about that. And I didn't even know if he had any. It's around his same time, so I wasn't even sure if you had any involvement with it. And naturally, yes, he cut the trailer. So first, before I read the back of the box, let me just kind of describe the genre and the series of movies. It all started. They didn't know they were doing a series. This is at the very, very beginning of Corman's opening up New World Pictures. And as we talked about before, I think on another episode. So when Corman started New World Pictures, it wasn't good enough for him to, he wanted to dominate or, to be a player inside of the world that he knew right away. So it wasn't enough to have 5 movies or 6 movies. He needed a full-on year slate. He needed 12 movies. And so he's able to finance a group of small ones, but he's also able to pick up from Eddie Romero and Ciro Santiago a bunch of Filipino ones. He's able to pick up a couple other ones that are on the market there. And so he can release 12 different movies. Creature with the Blue Hand, he gets the biggest release ever of Edgar Wallace Crimin. But one of the ones that he throws into production quickly right away, that's a homegrown product of his, is a movie called The Student Nurses, directed by Stephanie Rothman. And I don't like The Student Nurses that much, but it does what it's supposed to do. Anyway, the movie comes out, and it's a big hit for them. I mean, like a big hit. So, no, we got to do a nurse movie next year. And so next year is Private Duty Nurses by George Armitage, which is, I think, the best one. I think it's the best movie. I would even take it outside of, not just saying it's a good New World Picture, I would take it even outside of the New World Picture corral that it's in and say it's a really good 70s movie. I think there's a touch of Paul Mazursky to it. I mean, you could almost imagine those characters living right by Elmo, Chris Christopherson's character and Bloom's wife, Susan Oshkosh, in Venice. You could almost imagine them going to the same bars or something like that. There is that, and there is there's a real feeling of the way young people vibing and hooking up in a contemporary American city like Venice in 1970. I think the movie does a really good job of that. Then there's kind of the movie almost that brought you to Hollywood, Night Call Nurses by Jonathan Kaplan, which I think is the funnest of them. Then came the Young Nurses, then came Candy Stripe Nurses, and then they're doing teachers, and they got the student teachers and the summer school teachers, and then they got the Ciro Santiago ones, Cover Girl Models, and the stewardess one, Fly Me. Now, what all the movies had in common is basically you're following the adventures of 3 nurses, usually a blonde white one, a brunette white one, and then an ethnic one. Either she's black or she's Mexican usually. And, like something like Three Coins in the Fountain or whatever, it like kind of just follows their situation. They all work at the hospital. One of them's got some situation going on at the hospital about something. They all three meet guys during the course of the movie, and the guys that they meet usually involve them in some sort of drama at some point or another, or adventure at some point or another. But the thing about it is, like, the three girls are usually pretty charming in the film, and you kind of get caught up in their little stories, and they're all wonderful ways of looking at Los Angeles at that time, which I think cheap, low-budget movies do better than big-budget movies.
Yeah, because they're not using any production to hide the reality of the world.
Yeah, so Young Nurses takes place, primarily in Venice, where Private Duty Nurses takes place where me and Roger are from. It takes place in, like, Hermosa Beach or Manhattan Beach.
Yeah.
And the actors are fun in it. The guys playing the boyfriends, whatever ends up being bad guys, they show up. Dick Miller's in almost all of them. He shows up for a moment. There's always weird cameos by somebody like Sam Fuller or Grady Sutton, or some weird old timer shows up.
Alan Arbus.
Yeah, he's not an old timer then. He was
but weird to show up in this movie, isn't it?
This was
you done coffee just the other day as Matroni.
This was Mantan Moreland's last picture.
It was Mantan Moreland. Yeah, exactly.
Now, do you know that he was almost a stooge?
No, I did not know that.
When he did a picture with Shemp Howard, and it was called The Strange Case of Dr. RX, and they had some scene where I guess they were playing dice or something like that, and Shemp really thought that Mantan was very funny. And he went back to the other two guys, and he said, I'm not a spring chicken, and I'm going to have to retire soon. I think Mantan should replace me and become the third stooge. And so the other two guys went, yeah, great, we love him. Then, of course, they took it to Columbia, and Columbia said, well, he's black. And they said, yeah. And they said, no. And so they stuck him with Joe Besser.
Oh, so that's how Joe came into it.
Yeah, but Mo didn't like Joe Besser.
Yeah.
And he was really angry that Mantan didn't get the job.
And I think Mantan Moreland's, if I'm not mistaken, I think his big role before this was in Spider Baby.
That's, yeah.
Anyway, I'm a big fan of the nurse movies for all the reasons that I said. Also, one of the things that I like about them is they're pretty formulaic because they all follow more or less the structure that I just described. But inside of that structure, they could be quite different movies. One of them could be more serious. One of them could be more of a comedy. And there's really kind of actually set up for a director to kind of take the movie and give it their personality. That's one of the things that New World Pictures had, is a director would come in and look, they didn't have enough time usually to do what they wanted to do. They didn't have, it's just getting it done. Getting it done is the job. But hopefully they're throwing in a personality into the piece by the actors that they chose and what they decide to emphasize. And the nurse movies were kind of set up for the director to kind of lay out a personality. And consequently, the George Armitage one is quite different from the Jonathan Kaplan one, which is quite different from the Alan Holm one in Candy Striped Nurses. Now, you made a Faustian bargain when you worked with Corman. And that was like, okay, so you're going to make a movie in this genre, and you need to give me the elements that I need in order to exploit a successful motion picture, which it could be violence and action and nudity or sexuality. Then if you can make a movie that you want to make inside of these parameters, I'll let you do that. And I want you to do that. I want you to make it as good as possible. And that's kind of the bargain. Now, the thing about it is the New World Pictures, their titles suggested, especially for their sex movies, their titles suggested rougher movies than they were. They sounded like porno movies. And then the posters looked like porno posters. And even the radio spots could have been the radio spots for an erotic film.
To be honest, I thought we had a porn movie at Archives called Candy Striped Nurses.
No, we didn't. It was Candy Striped something else. Candy Striped Nurses, da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
So in something like Caged Heat, you'd have a lot of nudity all the time because they're in a prison and there's shower scenes going on. And so Jonathan Demme is able to kind of fulfill his nudity quota without really having to build scenes around it. It's in the milieu. It happens. And that's one way of handling it. Another way of handling it, like Jonathan Kaplan did when the two black characters have their sex scene, is to make it all really arty. And so he plays around with focus and he plays around with exposure and he shoots through fish tanks and, just plays around with it like that. It makes it arty, and that's how he delivers the sex scene. But officially, the two characters are naked in it, so it counts. Now, the way that most of them handled it is they turned it into comedy. They made it part of a joke. Now, all this is just absolutely fine, except it's not very erotic. And the movies are being sold as erotic films. And when you, as we'll talk about later, with our third film, when you watch a movie from Germany, when you watch a movie from Sweden, and you watch a movie from Holland, or watch a movie from Italy, which there was a lot of them, and they were selling it as an erotic film, you expected to see an erotic movie. Young Nurses is different. And that's why I chose this one. Now, first, let me read the back of the box before I go into my whole take on this movie. The young nurses in this hospital, the patients come first.
No, I think you read that wrong. The patients come first.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah, the inflection was wrong.
You're right.
I used to do trailers.
Luscious blonde Kitty, black beauty Michelle, and stunning brunette Joanne are lively young nurses who work at a large hospital and give the sexiest treatment you've ever seen. This is the story of the loves and the lies of these sex goddesses who must struggle to establish themselves as professionals in medicine at a hospital where sex, drugs, and violence are rampant. Whether it's at work or on their days off, the young nurses have your cure in this action/romance full of all kinds of excitement. This movie will raise your heart rate and send your temperature sky high. But don't worry. When you're feeling under the weather, these lovely nurses know just the remedy. Color, 177 minutes.
177 minutes?
R-rated.
It's not 177
How could that
Did I say 100? I meant to say 77 minutes. Sorry. I meant to say 77 minutes. Sorry. I don't know where I got the 100.
I think that's cheating. I don't think it's even 77 minutes.
So now, why I think this movie stands out is the director is Clint
Kimbrough.
Kimbrough. And was like a legit actor.
He never directed another movie.
Yeah, he appeared in quite a few different things, but I mean, most people most know him for he's one of the brothers in Bloody Mama, right along with Robert De Niro and Robert Walden and Don Stroud. But he's also in Night Call Nurses. He's got a good part in Night Call Nurses, and he was married to Frances Dole,
who is the script supervisor on this movie.
Was she Corman's assistant?
She was his. There are many people who believe that Roger could never have made it as far as he did without Frances.
No, I've always
between
heard
Frances and Chuck Griffith. It was like these were two appendages that he really needed.
I've heard that when it comes to that company, it's like she was the number two. So she was married to Clint, and he got a chance to direct his one movie, which was The Young Nurses. And we were amused by the fact that he took a slightly different name as a director. It's Clint Kimbrough. So I guess if directing was going to work for him, he was going to go by the name of Clint Kimbrough. What makes this movie different is he has made a decision to make an erotic movie in a way that the other directors didn't. It's coming from an erotic place. He's not holding his nose and doing the nude scenes. The movies are about the nude scenes. It's about them having liaisons. It's about filming it. And, he follows all the different adventures that the characters get into, but that usually leads them into something provocative at the very least.
Does he have an ambition to do more? Like the other directors did? I mean, in other words, did he have the capability of, for instance, the lap dissolve, sexy scenes of...
he's not a master stylist.
No, he's a first-time director, all right? He's doing his best, and they're bum rushing it all over Venice. Yeah,
and Marina Del Rey.
Yeah, Marina Del Rey.
It's a great document for.
It's got a regatta in it.
Yeah,
I've never seen a nurse movie with a regatta in it.
Well, again, we're from the South Bay, so as soon as the opening shot, when you see Marina Del Rey there, all right, like okay, I'm in. He went out to make an erotic movie. Mm-hmm. He's not holding his nose. This is why he's doing it. He builds the scenes around them. They're not cutaways. They're not just filler that's stuck in between his ridiculous plot. I say he's putting up with a ridiculous plot.
Well, I mean, it's almost the plot of Coma. My note on this was like Coma on Downers, because I mean there's
that's one of the three plots.
Deaths that are occurring. Well, that nurses are privy to.
One of the things about the nurse movies is the ethnic character, either the black character or the Mexican character. She's always the one that has the more crime story involved.
The issue-oriented.
There might be drugs or a political prisoner convict situation, but there's there's usually something as far as that's concerned. But I also think that's one of the things that makes young nurses interesting too. But what did you think, Joe?
Am I allowed to disagree?
Of course you are.
Yeah. After seeing the movie again, after so many years.
I hadn't seen the movie since 1973 or whenever it came out. To me, the auteur of this movie is Howard R. Cohen, who's the writer. Yeah. He came right off of Unholy Rollers to do this. And he was kind of a go-to guy for Roger if he needed something done quickly. And eventually was scooted up the ladder and got to direct some things.
Yeah, he did he did
Saturday the 14th.
Saturday the 14th, yeah.
And I find it the weakest of the nurse pictures, and not necessarily because the script is so silly, because it's really not much different than the other nurse pictures. I find it to be a drab-looking movie. I mean, it is interesting to see the locations, because it's always interesting to see the locations in 1973 and how different it is. But it doesn't have any flash. It's kind of murky. There's not enough fill light. Half the time you can't see the people's faces, and you go, well, shouldn't there be a light over here? Well, I know why there isn't a light there. But the fact is that there isn't a light there. And so the overall impression of the movie is that it's a little shoddy. And although there is an attempt at doing something different with the black subplot, particularly when she gets dosed, but with drugs. In this,
I've been waiting to talk about that.
Sort of.
That's the sequence of the movie.
That's
why we're
Ken Russell-like moment with writhing bodies and stuff. That's actually kind of interesting. But I think there's a reason why Clint Kimbrough didn't direct any other movies. He doesn't look to me like he enjoyed it.
Well, that might very well be the case, and I can imagine just making a New World picture with all the pressures involved and doing it all in a couple of weeks is like, unless you really...
Well, it's true, but then you get somebody like Kaplan who makes Night Call Nurses, which is a fun movie, and then says, I want to do it again. I'm going to do The Student Teachers, which is the same movie with teachers. Yeah. And there were a number of people, like Stephanie Rothman and other people, where they were ambitious. Yeah. There's no ambition in this picture.
Look, I hear what you mean. I enjoyed it more, and as I stated, I like private duty nurses more, and I like night call nurses more. And I also even like candy stripe nurses, which I think is probably the second most of the erotic ones, because it kind of commits to being a sex comedy. And because it commits 100% to the comedy.
Well, also it's got Candace Ralston.
Well, it's got wonderful Candace Ralston.
And the cast of this movie, they're all game. They're doing their best, but there's nobody that stands out. There's nobody that really... is very interesting.
You are right. I almost think, but there's almost an off-brand quality, all right, to this one that I kind of appreciate.
It's like a Dimension picture.
The sleepy-eyed Ashley Porter walking around like in a kind of dream state throughout the movie. I found myself thinking about her constantly. Like after we left, I was like, that was actually kind of a strange, maybe unintentionally riveting performance for me.
They normally cast at least one very vivacious young actress in this group. So in Candy Stripe Nurses, there's two. You got Candace Ralston and Robin Mattson, who I'm a big fan of. All right. All three of the girls in Night Call Nurses is terrific, especially the girl Patty Byrne, who didn't really do it. I mean, she's fantastic. She's really good.
I thought for sure she was going to have a career.
One of my favorite lead lead female performances in a New World Picture, Patty Byrne. I like the off-brand quality that these girls aren't quite up to that level of them, but also it gets a little more friskier. All right, because of that.
It does.
It's like, it's like, okay, why did Buñuel cast 2 actresses to play the same role in Obscure Object of Desire? Well, obviously because he wanted to have nude scenes, and one of them would do the nude scenes, and Carol Bouquet is like too classy to do the nude scenes. It's not a trick. Right? It's not a trick question.
That's a Roger reason.
Yeah, that's a Roger reason.
Roger happily uses that excuse.
Yeah. But
that's actually using surrealism to your benefit.
Yeah.
In that moment. And what is surrealism other than the Marx Brothers movies?
Okay. But the thing that makes The Young Nurses, what makes me stand behind it, all right, that I can defend it against all comers, is that sequence in the middle when Angela Gibbs, the black nurse, who looks amazing in the movie, riding around on her motorcycle with her
cape,
nurse outfit.
Oh, that cape
and her
is
Florence
fantastic.
Nightingale cape, all right, is just fantastic.
I mean,
she looks like a superhero.
But,
all right?
but that's an example. That cape is something that you might not see in a contemporary film. That watching this movie, it becomes suddenly, wow, this movie serves as the document for that cape.
And watching her in that cape and that nurse outfit, like zooming through Venice, all right, is very pleasing.
And there were quite a few costumes, which were probably just available close from whatever the last production was, or whatever the actors were wearing.
You never know. An up-and-coming young costume person is making a statement, and I don't know who did the costumes or where they went, but a lot of people worked on those movies and then went immediately to better jobs.
Yeah. But the thing is, okay, so she has a boyfriend. Not even a boyfriend. She has a guy that she's hooked up with before, that she has this liaison with, and he was passing out this drug. And he had done drugs before, and then she saw that he had passed out this drug, and she's investigating because the drug is dangerous. It's being used. There's a dangerous quality.
This is the boat skipper. Right?
Yeah. Oh, it's interesting. This dude, the guy that she's with, because he seems like he's all presented as extremely sketchy, to say the least.
Yeah.
That he's presented as sketchy. But she seems to kind of be okay with it. She'll ask him about questions. She's still playing Nancy Drew about this whole drug thing, he's part of it. And she ultimately has this laissez-faire attitude about his involvement in it all. And even to the point of they're almost going to are we going to fight about it? Hell no. And instead they go and they fuck in the cab of the boat. But
73, they're doing a little bit of drug deals. And
but again,
fentanyl got into the drugs. That's all.
But the thing that I like about that sequence, all right, is the fact that it's like 2 black actors playing it, and there actually is a soul element to that scene. It's not written in a way where it's just, they get the couple of black actors and they say, out of sight, man, and slap each other 5, and they just throw a little jive around. No, there's a soul quality involved in the way they talk and the back and forth. And also seeing the guy on a boat and watching a scene like that in Marina Del Rey, all right, is also very interesting. But then it leads to the point of no return as far as the movie is concerned. And that's when she goes to this bar, and the guy's there with the bartender, who we've seen murder a couple of people in just a couple of scenes earlier, I think. And we watched them lace her drink with the drug. And so she unknowingly, she takes it and she drinks it. She sits down with him, and then all of a sudden, starts feeling the effects of the drug. And then they get on the floor and they start dancing, and she's having a really good time. And then she just starts having this sexual, either fantasy hallucination, or is it actually happening in real life? It's not for sure. That all the other black folks that are dancing on the floor, it starts as a dancing, and then it turns into something out of Ken Russell, where they've all taken off their clothes and they're all having this kind of orgy on the dance floor. So then they leave. And she's with the guy, and she's still all kind of high and bopping around. And then she goes, okay, so you spiked me, right? Yeah. But you didn't give me enough to kill me. No, I didn't give you enough to kill you. Just enough to
loosen you up.
Have a good time. Have a good time. And then so you're like, okay, so how's she going to react about this? And then again, she takes the laissez-faire. Okay, whatever. It's all good. And then they go back to her apartment, and then they have sex. And then all of a sudden, all the dancers are there. And now it's a fucking orgy is going on. And like, how much is the drug? How much is real?
It all comes together to make for a perfectly Quentin scene.
Considering,
just loves that.
Considering what? I love that whole sequence.
Yeah.
All right. And the moral ambiguity of it is the cheese on top.
Yeah.
All right. But again, one of the things about it that's so special is, frankly, to tell you the truth, especially in America, black actors and characters and black bodies are not emphasized in erotic films. I mean, you might see there's the random black actress here and there, but they don't have scenes like this. And they definitely do not have scenes where like 6 naked black bodies are all together in the middle of of an irregular erotic film. And yeah, I think that's a big deal. I think that's special. And we're back with Gala Avery.
Hello. Okay, I'm back for The Young Nurses. So Joe brought up writer Howard R. Cohen, which I'm glad he did because he wrote a ton of Cirio H. Santiago films.
Yeah, I know. He wrote Death Force.
He wrote
great.
Death Force, he wrote Striker, he wrote Striker, which I'm not a huge fan of.
I forgot
could
he did
almost
write
be Death Force.
Yeah.
But he actually wrote my personal favorite, Vampire Hookers.
Oh, he wrote Vampire Hookers.
Which I actually really like Vampire Hookers, which might be questionable, but that's my taste. So.
And he ended up in children's television.
What a great
the natural progression.
Yeah, like Rainbow Bright episodes or something like that. Yeah.
What a great trajectory. Okay, so this VHS that Quentin has in front of him, which you guys can see on the website and the newsletter, has 4 young nurses on the cover. There is
the 4th one. She's not really part of the thing.
You're lucky when even the girls on the cover are the same girl.
Yeah.
Is she
exactly.
Is she the candy stripe girl?
Yeah, she's the candy striper.
So she's the candy striper.
She's the candy striper who fucks the rock star.
So like the first story of like the first girl, the blonde one, she's so absorbed with this boat regatta, which yes, it is like this huge, as Joe said, when do you ever see a boat regatta in one of these nurse movies? Never.
Well, you can bet that's the reason they made the movie. They got a chance. Hey, I know somebody who's got a boat. We're down at Marina. There's going to be a regatta. We can shoot stuff for free.
Yeah.
But I just love that she's like so obsessed, and she's like, he can't sail with that shoulder, and like just like, so obsessed with like him not being able to sail.
Yeah, because she's falling for this guy who has a shoulder injury from a boating accident,
which she's the cause of.
But now, to me, it's interesting because the 3 actresses. There's Jean Mason, who is the blonde one that you're talking about.
Kitty, right? Is that her
Kitty,
name? Kitty.
Yeah. Then there's Angela Gibbs, is the black one, and then there's Ashley Porter. That's the tall, statuesque brunette, who is like overseeing her authority. All right, she's prescribing things that only a doctor should be prescribing, that a nurse shouldn't be prescribing. Now, I think it's actually interesting of the 3 of them because Jean Mason, the blonde one, to me is drastically the best actress. All right, she's carrying off her scenes. She's doing her job and that Putz's job for him.
Yeah.
All right. Ashley Porter is drastically the least experienced actress of the 3, especially compared to Jean Mason. She's strangely the most star-worthy of them. You find yourself looking at her.
It's her dreamy
She has
eyes.
a star quality. She has a star quality about her.
And actually, she has one of my favorite moments, actually, the bikini kite, where he ties the kite to like her bikini top, and then it flies away.
No, she ties the string to his dick.
Yeah.
No, after though.
Oh, okay,
She does it after, and then it flies away. But at first,
I think you're kind of bearing the lead.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't fly away. Yeah.
It's very dirty hands with the kite thing. But I love how though it takes her bikini top, and then she's just like out there in the water, and then yes, as Quentin says, she ties the string to his penis, and then it rises with it and flies away and all that stuff.
I thought that was actually rather provocative. Did you not?
If you're making a movie with kites and nurses,
but just that moment, just that moment, didn't you think, oh wow?
Yeah. Well, Gala just said it. It's like a dirty. Claude Chabrol would have done it himself.
No, but he didn't do it. He didn't. I'm asking you about them, but no, it's not.
Yeah, I like
Claude
it when
Chabrol is no Clint Kimbrough.
That's true.
You heard it here first, folks.
Yes, I liked it when she tied the kite to his,
just that exact moment. Like,
and then the kite. Oh, it's rising.
Yeah.
It's rising.
Her story, though, she's like kind of like a little annoying for me. Like how she's like, there's not enough doctors, so I'm going to do it. Okay, great. Like,
well, nurses are expected to like do all. It was also an issue, actually.
Yeah,
it's the medical struggle of these nurses, and the doctors are just not pulling their weight, and they don't have the authority to do things that they should do. And then she finally has the moment where she does it, and she pulls rank and does something that she's not supposed to do, and administers the medicine that she really doesn't have the authority to administer, and all goes wrong, and the guy's almost killed.
Yeah, the tainted blood.
That was actually kind of interesting. It wasn't that she got away with it.
I ascribe that to Julie Corman, who is the producer of this picture. And one thing Julie was very specific about in all of those movies was she always wanted to have some social aspect of the picture. They always had to deal with some problem that people had. And the nurse pictures are off about bad hospital administrators and, bad.
No, yeah, you're right. It's like one storyline usually involves like the nurse that directly deals with the hospital, something going on. And then there is like the socially political now moment, storyline of one of them. Usually the boyfriend brings into it. And then there's like a romance story, more or less.
Thank you, Julie Corman, for giving the movie a moral center. It's actually probably the reason we're still talking about the film.
Yeah, and I like though, because it's like she is like a nurse, but then her boyfriend or something is like a doctor, and he's kind of like, stop doing this, you shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah, it's like Coma.
Yeah, it's like Coma. I love Coma.
Okay, well, wait. Okay, on one hand, he's saying, "Stop doing this." But I was like, "Hey, this bed just got available. Hey, this room just got available."
Yeah,
all right? It's like Patty Chayefsky going on here, just like looking for empty rooms. Fucking.
When I'm watching this movie though, it's like there are these two girls that have like these like romance stories that they're like kind of. I mean, the boat regatta. He can't sail with that shoulder. It's like my favorite line from the movie. That he can't do it. And then, like, she's trying to, like, maybe figure out if she wants to be an OBGYN, like, yogurt, all this stuff. And then the black chick, it's, like, actually out there investigating, like, this drug ring.
The fentanyl problem in America.
Problem in America. And I love it because it all starts when her patient dies.
Yeah.
Because she's been taking care of this guy,
clinic.
this kid at the free clinic who's, I think he's blind.
Yeah.
And so she's been taking care of him. And she's like, I'm going to get to the bottom of this because like this is like the real social action. This is actually what I can do. And I love that she goes and she investigates. And I just love at the same time it's being intercut with the boat regatta. It's like, it's so frivolous. And for those anime fans out there, there's an anime which I actually just watched called Rojin Z. And it is the exact same story. Her patient dies and she has to kind of go and investigate. And it's really compelling. And that's the compelling part for me in this movie is definitely her story and kind of the juxtaposition of the boat regatta because it's just so ridiculous for me. But now, Quentin and everyone at this table, is Coffee a nurse film?
Well,
no. She is a nurse. It's not a nurse
film.
She is a nurse, but it's not a nurse film.
No, it's not a nurse film because there would have to be more than one nurse.
Yeah.
And we don't ever really go back to the hospital in Coffee, do we?
Oh, we do a little bit.
Just a little.
Not after the first 20 minutes. Once she joins King George.
You would have to end at the hospital, and you would have to have an administrator character and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So for anyone that's interested in watching the young nurses after this conversation, it is available on YouTube in surprisingly amazing quality. It's very well shot on YouTube. So probably where that movie looks the best. Not really caring about that fill light when I'm watching on my laptop, I suppose.
Yeah.
Quentin's VHS lands in the drama section.
Mm-hmm.
And I got my VHS. It's a Charter Entertainment for $9.88.
This would move at Video Archives. This would move on a whim to either the erotic section under the Ys, or it just would find its way into the drama.
Yeah, either drama. Probably not cult.
No.
Erotic.
No. We have an erotic section.
I would be putting that in the erotic section.
Yeah. But sometimes it would find its way to the drama, too.
Mm-hmm.
Susan?
Mijn nachten met Susan, Olga, Albert, Julie, Piet en Sandra. Mijn nachten. Mijn nachten met Pim en Wim. Een Sex and Psycho suspense mystery thriller.
And we're back with our final film tonight. And tonight's film was one Quentin chose that he said was a Roger movie. And I think.
Did I say it was a Roger movie?
You did when you said this is going to be the Roger movie.
Oh, that opening 10 minutes is like a Roger movie.
Tonight's film is Mein Nachten mit Susan, Olga, Albert, Julie, Piet, and Sandra from 1975, otherwise known as My Nights with Susan, Sandra, Olga, and Julie. For some reason, Piet gets left out of the...
Well, he never really has a
Albert.
night with her.
Yeah.
Piet, she has a night with the dead body.
Quentin, I'm going to read the box, but sure. I believe you chose this movie because it was like a sex film, right?
Yeah, I chose it because I hadn't seen it. And it's one of those movies that I'd seen like the first 10 minutes of it, and I always thought it looked really, really intriguing. In fact, it looked so intriguing that I didn't want to watch it by myself. I wanted to watch it with somebody else. And then I did a little research on these filmmakers, the producer and director, and that's actually kind of interesting. So I thought it would be a fun one to watch. And I did like the idea that it's released on private screenings, which was media, home videos, special line for erotic films, which was almost always German or Swedish or Scandinavian.
Now, I'm going to make a confession. I probably more than once put this box back onto the shelves under P.
Yeah, for private screenings.
Because the box itself...
It looks like that's the title, but I think there's a caveat. This picture was shot in Technoscope, which is the widescreen process that only uses half the frame.
Oh, yeah.
And this tape, of course, is pan and scan.
Yeah.
And when we watched it on Quentin's TV, it zooms in because it wants to make the pictures look widescreen. Well, that meant cutting off both sides and the top and bottom of this picture. And the remarkable thing is, I'd never heard of this picture. never heard of the director. I didn't know anything about it. It played great, even though I could hardly see half the movie.
Even though anytime a character stood up, they were cut off at the chin.
Yeah. Okay, so, and the movie, by the way, is directed by the team, directed and produced by the team, Pin de la Parra, and produced by Wim Verstappen. Anton, a young adventurer on his way to the south of France, stops for a rest at a small farm in the countryside. In spite of its very obvious charms, Anton discovers that this youth hostel plays host to a very different breed of women. Julie is a sweet but silent young girl who's always sleeping. Sandra and Olga are two seductive and murderous mademoiselles with more than their fair share of experience. Piet, the village fool, is a strange woman who keeps odd secrets in her tiny cottage. And Susan is the lovely proprietress who oversees this strangely alluring household. Before his stay is over, Anton will have uncovered all their secrets. He'll never forget his nights with Susan, Sandra, Olga, and Julie, and neither will you.
That's actually a pretty good plot synopsis, actually.
Color, 75 minutes. Media home video, but they're private screenings label.
Yeah.
And the title is smaller than the label's branding, private screenings. I mean, I love this film. It takes place in this kind of desolate Dutch landscape of reclaimed ocean. You're on a dike, basically, and they're literally at the edge of the ocean. And so there's this strange kind of empty desolation to everything that I kind of adore. And from the opening scenes where these two murderous, hot girls, these hot and murderous, I don't know if they're murderous and hot or hot and murderous, when they kill this American in a car. And it's such a great scene. I mean, that must have been the scene where you stopped it and said, okay, I've got to.
Yeah, no, it's like I've seen this opening about like a couple times. Sandra and Olga are walking down the road, and then they hitchhike, and then they're with some American tourist who's driving through Holland looking at the windmills. In
an American car.
In a big American car.
Why the American is there with an American car driving through like Holland, I don't know.
Smoking cigars. There's got some, the girl is passing the whiskey bottle around.
He's got some Elvis glasses.
With the girl. He decides to have sex with one of them, and while he's having sex with one of them, the other one bashes his head in with the whiskey bottle. And it's not presented like it was a setup or it was a robbery or anything like that. It's just like the brunette girl went crazy. Well, the redhead girl
you kind of get a feeling that it's psychosexual. Like these two highly sexually charged girls.
The one having sex with the American, all right, gives her a look like, well, what the fuck was that about?
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Yeah, and it's just like, it's almost like it just kind of upsets her. I'm not even sure she intended to kill him necessarily. She just kind of bonks him with the bottle like he just pisses her off that he's mounted her girlfriend.
Yeah,
maybe.
she's just fucking crazy, all right? And she just acts like a crazy person, all right?
Which makes her even hotter.
Yeah. And then they go in a very realistic scene. This guy playing the dead body is as good as I've ever seen any actor play a dead body. They throw him in the swamp, all right? It looks like a swamp or a marsh. They throw him in that, and then like the village idiot, Piet, finds his body and then drags his dead body.
Piet's a woman.
Yeah, Piet's a woman. And drags it back to her little shack and starts like building a little home with the dead body. Meanwhile, Anton shows up at the inn and then meets everybody there. Susan runs the house, and then she has 3 other people staying, 2 of the killer girls that no one knows that they're murderers, Sandra and Olga, and then there's Julie, who sleeps all the time.
Yeah, who's like the mopey one.
Yeah. But then, not mentioned on the box, is there's another resident of the place, and that's a character named Albert. He's this young guy that apparently Susan knew a while ago, and they were really good friends. But apparently something happened to Albert, and now not only is he an agoraphobic where he can't leave the house, he can't leave his room. And he's got a room like...
where he can peep into the other rooms.
Yeah, like Bad Ronald.
Yeah.
All right, he's got a Bad Ronald room. So it's like a small room, more like a closet.
But he uses it more like a Norman Bates room.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Now, one of the things about the film that I didn't buy at all is it seemed like the girls were performing for the peephole. Then it turns out later they didn't know he was there.
But the girls just like to be naked. These girls are naked it's almost as if the costume people didn't show up. And they said, well, just shoot the scene anyway, no clothes.
No,
because they wear no clothes constantly.
Especially talking about Sandra and Olga. Especially Olga. Olga especially.
Is
the
Olga,
killer.
Is Olga the dark-haired one?
Yeah.
She's wearing that white kind of, it's not fishnet, but like...
But he's right, though. Half the time, Olga's wearing nothing.
Yeah.
She's just stark naked.
And we like it that way.
Yeah. And then it's like, frankly, to tell you the truth, this film has a lot of similarities with The Fool Killer. I mean, there is this almost regional mountain folk aspect about these Dutch characters. Yeah. Anton seems like hands down like the most hippest of them, and he's passing through. He's a traveler. He's
like the Rutger Hauer character had Verhoeven directed this movie. Because it actually kind of feels in some ways like super early Verhoeven.
Yeah, well, they all fit around the exact same time. I think this movie was made in 1974, so I think actually
Turkish Delight.
Yeah, it was like done the year before Turkish Delight. Yeah. But there is this macabre mystery element kind of hanging over the movie while it doesn't get in the way of the sexual hijinks. And it doesn't get in the way of the film's kind of likability about the way that all the characters interact with each other and the way they pair off, or the situations that happen with the different combinations of characters. But like The Fool Killer, there is this macabre aspect kind of hanging over it. As
well, it's almost Hitchcockian.
Yeah. Uh-huh. And it has a very Herman-esque score.
It does. It does. And that's interesting because Herman worked with these guys before.
Oh, uh-huh.
They made a picture, or Pym did, called Obsession, 1969. Music by Herman, screenplay co-written by Martin Scorsese.
No.
Really?
Yes.
I've never heard of this movie.
Slate it.
It's a real picture.
Wow. Maybe Scorsese did that during the time that he was in Holland shooting the sex scenes for Who's That Knocking on My Door?
Possibly.
Yeah, that would make sense.
But I didn't know that Scorsese was even involved with the production that had Herman in it before he became a director for sure.
I was shocked to see that.
It's interesting.
But that's because I have to say, I had never heard of this picture. I'd never heard of the director. I didn't know anything about it. And I was surprised how much I liked it.
Yeah.
And I was particularly impressed with the lead actress.
Yeah.
Whose name is, if I can pronounce it, Willeke van Amelroy.
Yeah.
Now,
that was pretty good. You did a good job there with all those vowels.
People may have remembered seeing her in her later years as the lead in Antonia's Line, which was a fairly popular movie.
It was a popular movie, yeah.
But this is 1975, and she was the sex pot.
Yeah, she's so striking.
And she is gorgeous. Yeah. Just it's a pleasure to just look at her.
Yeah, her bone structure
is incredible.
It's perfect.
And also the thing about it is and it's, even though she's in this erotic film, she's an actress of such substantial thing that like it seems almost disrespectful, to call her a sex flick star. All right, because she actually brings a gravitas.
And she doesn't take her clothes.
Yeah, and she's absolutely not playing that sexy character in this. She's like,
she's the anchor.
She's the anchor in the middle of this pot boiler that's occurring around her.
Well, the thing is, like these two filmmakers, Pen de la Para and Wim Verstappen, I'll just call them Pin and Wim from here on in. They started a company called Scorpio Films, and they started doing these series of erotic movies in Holland. And for a period of time, I think they were the most successful, for like a year or two, they were the most successful filmmakers in Holland, because they had just done just a series of these movies all done around this scale that had all done fairly well. And they were a true team where Wim would direct one, and then Pin would produce that one, and then Pin would direct the next one, and Wim would produce that one. And by the time they'd done this one, according to Films and Filmmaking, this was like Pin's fourth movie as a director. And Wilkie, all right, who you're talking about, the actress, she was definitely their star. She was definitely their big star. And they mentioned that there's another movie that they did that is apparently even better, called Frank and Eva Living Apart Together. And Pin directed that one that also has Wilkie in it. And also Sylvia Cristal, and that actually is available on YouTube. Under the name Frank and Eva. That's available on YouTube in Dutch with subtitles. And I was gonna watch it this weekend, and I missed it. But I'm going
to look that one up right away, because this movie really turned me on.
I do want to see it. And also one of the films that Wim directed is a few years later. He directed one of the Rutger Hauer starring movies when Rutger Hauer was starring and stuff in Holland. And that actually got released. One of the ones that got released, some of them got released on video in the old days. And one of them he did is one called The Outsider. And I think that's available on a couple of video cassettes we can find around. But this was definitely the one that falls under the category of the three of us hadn't seen it.
Yeah.
A little prepped by sitting in the first 10 minutes. All right. Which, by the way, the use of the Stevie Wonder song is just perfect. It's one of the great music drops I've seen in a long time, especially from back then. But I was really taken with how we all enjoyed it. We all got into its vibe. And we're back with Gala Bubbles Avery.
That's close, actually. That's close, but no cigar for my middle name, Quentin.
She calls you sir. She never calls me sir.
Sir, yes, sir.
Sir, yes, sir.
So we're back with My Nights with Susan, Sandra, Olga, and Julie, and Pim de la Para. Okay, so the interesting thing about him is he's not only Dutch, but he's actually from Suriname. And he made the very first movie that was ever made in Suriname, which is Van People, or One People. Which also stars Willeke van Amelroy. One People's on YouTube, and it also stars Willeke van Amelroy, and it is like this touching personal love story all about the relationship between Holland and Suriname, and like the class system there, and like how it's a really wonderful thing. So if anyone has seen My Nights with Susan, Sandra, Olga, and Julie and liked this movie, you should check out One People, because it's really good. On this VHS transfer that you guys watched, because I didn't watch a VHS transfer. What was the color like?
It was okay.
It was fine. It was okay, but it was very, I felt muted, neutral tones.
Okay.
We're watching a very bleep landscape.
You guys are missing out, because this movie pops with color when it's not on VHS.
Interesting.
It is like.
So what did you see it on?
So I got a rip of it from the Internet Archive. It's an English dub.
A good source, the Internet Archive.
A good source. That's one of my favorite sources for free media. The Internet Archive. It's an English dub with Spanish subtitles. So
wow, great.
I'm flexing my Spanish as I'm watching. Not really. But the color on it is striking. Like her kitchen is like this bright red.
Yeah, there's a lot of reds. That was another Roger thing. When Roger gets an opportunity, he paints everything red.
But the opening sets you up for this weird tone in the movie, because watching it, I scrubbed through to like make sure I had an English version, because the worst thing that you can do is like download something or like watch something and it's not like in the right language, like when I'm watching Cry for Me Billy and it's in German, and that was a pain in my butt. But I scrubbed through, and like the one line I could find.
But you saw Cry for Me Billy.
I did. But the one line of dialogue I could find was when he throws the sunglasses after Piet is like throwing them in the window, and she comes up to him, she's like, I am so horny. I never had an orgasm before. And I'm thinking, God, what am I gonna like be into?
That was the line you landed on?
That was the one line I landed on. I'm thinking, I'm gonna have to watch like the sex movie where it's like she's like begging for an orgasm.
Quentin!
And
Damn you, Quentin!
And Joe Dante. Like, this is what I have to watch. Okay, the movie is not that, you guys. It like markets itself as like this sex movie, but it's like this really enchanting thriller.
Yeah, okay, now it is a sex movie. That's what I like about it. All right,
but the main character doesn't take her clothes off.
Well, you. You have 4 main characters.
She doesn't have to because everybody else.
But is it more of a thriller than it is a sex film?
I think it's more of a thriller.
I think the thriller aspects overpower this.
I think the sex.
Okay, I disagree, and here's if then you might have to come up with a new visitor visiting. All right, but. If the 2 sisters killed Anton when they had sex with him the first time, and then we knew that that was a thing, that whenever they had sex, one of them would end up killing the guy, that would be a different thing. Then the 2 girls would be these time bombs waiting to go off, and then you'd be meeting somebody else who ends up showing up. But I actually think it's part of the charm of the movie that the movie doesn't forget that a murder happened. I mean, I've never seen a murdered body been given as much agency as this murdered body.
It's a great murdered body.
Yeah, and the actor's doing a fantastic job. I mean, just truly.
Yeah, he's somehow frozen his eyes. He's somehow turned off everything above his neck.
And he's on for a long time, not blinking.
Yeah. Or breathing. I was searching for a breath.
But oddly enough, he's still kind of coming across as a person. You know, the way his posture falls makes it look real and makes him look like a real person. But the thing about it, though, is... I think it's weird. Like I said, I think there's like a macabre element like the Fool Killer, but I'm going to get to that macabre element somewhere in the last 15 or 20 minutes. Like, for instance, while the movie doesn't forget that a murder happened, the movie seems to forget that they're murderers. There is like almost, the point being is it's up to us to remember that they killed that character at the beginning, because there's no emphasis on that at all throughout the rest of the movie. That to even such a degree, what, did they kill him? Well, of course they did. I saw it. All right, but the movie's not telling you.
They don't act like it. They don't have any secrets at all.
They never. Yeah. There's no rationale. There's no reason given for their murders. I mean, there could almost be a chapter that took place before this where they were sex workers in Den Haag and they just went off on their own.
Yeah, that's like what I thought. I thought it was like a sex worker revenge.
Because the way they're walking down the road, like in those skimpy outfits, like bopping.
And I consider it like a compliment of the highest order. The fact that it can take the murder itself so seriously and then not take them seriously as murderers, that's an achievement. That is actually hard to do. Yeah. And the film does it.
Yeah.
I expected maybe it to be something like To Be 20.
Yeah. That's what I would have thought too.
Which is a movie that starts out like it's a harmless sex comedy and then becomes the most horrific.
Fernando de Leo.
Horrible. Climax which I think in a lot of places they didn't run that part.
Yeah.
But it's truly shocking.
Yeah.
I thought this was going to be a little bit like that, and it's not. It's its own thing.
Yeah, it's its own thing.
So I disagree with you guys that the back of the box like matches the movie. Mostly because...
No, I'm the only one that said that.
Okay, well, Quentin, let's...
Oh, you could disagree with me. Okay.
I disagree with you.
Shocker.
What's new? I disagree because one of the things I like about this movie is that you actually don't really know what's going on and how everything unfolds. Like how they say that Julie is asleep all the time. Okay, well, Julie is asleep all the time because she's up with...
Albert.
She's up with Albert. Like, that's why she's asleep all day.
Well, that eventually happens.
But I don't know if that was happening before or not.
No,
they've been having a relationship.
They actually say they say the one she has her first time with Albert, that's obviously her first time. They talk about it. I think.
Yeah.
All right.
But, in our dubbed version.
Yeah, in our dubbed version. All right. But
I think I was watching the same dubbed version. I hope.
But at the beginning, it's like, oh, and this is Julie. She sleeps all the time.
Yeah, that was funny. But like the way I took it is, it's like they're unfolding kind of these mysteries behind the girl, and I read it as like she's up all night, like conversing with him through the wall, and that's why she's asleep all day. And it's like, okay, And then when the guy comes,
that makes a little sense.
Yeah, that actually.
And then when the guy comes, it's not what the back of the box is saying. He's not coming to a boarding house. She's an ex-model. She was a supermodel. Like, she talks about she had the most beautiful face in the world, and she's run away. She couldn't handle the fame. So she's run away to this house, and he's there to come get her for a job. Like, it's his job to come pick her up. So that's not what the...
That's you know what? Gala's right. Actually, she's right.
Yeah, that is true.
Gala won. I did it. Yes. But
I think there is a thing on the back of the box by focusing on Anton and the idea of him going through his nights with all four of these chicks. That's the idea.
Your faith in the copy in the back of the box is astonishing to me.
Well, you
you didn't remember the intricacies. You did not remember the intricacies of the story until she said it any more than I did.
But you know that the people who write these things haven't seen the movies.
Well, that's what we were talking about, is because normally the back of the box is so far off, and Quentin has to give like this whole thing of like, that's not what the movie is. This is what the movie is. And so this one actually... But you know what? This
was close enough. This was
motive
reasonable.
for him being there is maybe not on the back of the box, but everything else...
Yeah, I feel like the first like 2 or 3 sentences are not right, and then it gets into it.
Yeah.
But...
I mean, he's not on his way to France on his moped or on his motorcycle or whatever he's...
No, he's there to get her for a job
unless
in
he says,
Montagne. Actually,
unless the job is in France.
I think it's in Montagne.
The job could be in France.
I think it's in Montagne. But besides
if it's a modeling job.
Besides that, though, I like that, like, how it unfolds, like how I kind of don't know what their relationship is, and then like as it's going, I'm learning, okay, she's a model, he's there to get her for a job, but they're kind of falling in love, and she's been like afraid, and she can't run away from everything. Like, she keeps running away from the boss. They all know that.
And who is this half-wit running around in the...
Who is Piet?
Yeah.
Piet belongs to the house. That was one of the things I love, that she says that Piet and Anton belong to the house. And it's like, okay, like, what does that mean? I don't know what that means.
Well, the house is red.
Yeah.
The house is
No, didn't they explain something that
the house is a mythic place?
That Piet's family used to take care of the house, and wasn't that explained?
I don't know, but I was just like thinking, like, when she's like, oh yeah, Piet belongs to the house, Piet wouldn't hurt a fly. And it's like, okay, that's fine. We just have a crazy person like running around who's probably the least crazy person.
Well, okay, crazy person, but they've known each other since they were children.
Yeah. Also, this poor guy who enters into this house with like all of like these crazy people, that freak out that Julie has when she sees the guy sleeping with the 2 girls is epic. That is like an epic meltdown. I'm sorry, Dad.
When
I'm
she
sure I've
starts smashing
that
things
somewhere in my life.
Yeah, no, I've seen you do it.
That was
family secrets.
Yeah.
Yes, it happens.
When she's ripping that shirt, I felt that.
When she grabbed that shirt and just suddenly ripped, I'm going to rip something, I'm going to rip this.
I've done that before.
That was very convincing. Her
meltdown is epic.
Her meltdown is very convincing. I agree with that.
Yeah, and then just the last shot of the movie, and maybe we'll talk about it, maybe we won't, but of Piet with the cigar in her mouth, like
watching the flames.
You have to do the Franklin Browner thing, like the. Yeah, she's like watching the flames, and she has a cigar in her mouth, and she's like smiling.
She got her arms around both dead bodies.
Yeah, that is an awesome way to end a movie.
That took me back to almost every Filmex movie I feel like I ever went to. Like, because it seemed like every European film I was watching had some kind of bleak scene like that with somebody watching something burn.
I'm kind of cheering for Piet, though.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm totally cheering
like,
for Piet.
The thing that the girls...
Feels like the end of Ferret Vampire.
Oh, no, actually, that was actually one of the fun things is, like, they're like, Piet. No, yeah, their little thing. And then all of a sudden she sets the bar of our, oop. Like, oop.
Like, Piet, look at my tits.
No, sorry, Dad. Piet, look at my pussy, look at my tits, Piet. That's like the chant they do.
I was like, so Piet.
I mean, it taught me my Internet Archive thing taught me that the word for pussy in Spanish is concha, which led me on this whole thing.
You don't get this kind of stuff on other podcasts.
Yeah. Father-daughter conversation.
She's our researcher.
Which led me down the etymology of conch last night and mollusk and all these good things, but. The version that you guys can watch online for free is on the Internet Archive. It is an English dub with a Spanish sub. I think there might be a version kind of floating around YouTube, but I don't think it's in full.
Is it in widescreen?
You know, I could see the full thing, so yeah, I'm going to guess it is now that I think about it. I didn't even...
Well, you can see the full... how do you know you've seen the full thing?
Well, because their chins are not the only thing in frame.
You feel as though the framing was it a wider screen than it was? What was the aspect ratio?
I don't think it was wide, actually. I don't think it was wide, but like their chins...
185.
It's probably pan and scan.
Thank you, Joe Dante, for saving me from my father asking me if it was 185.
Was it 185, 166, 178? Tell me.
You're brutal with that child.
Well, if you're interested in watching, it's on the Internet Archive, English dub, Spanish subtitle, or you can pick up a VHS. I picked up...
Don't pick up the VHS.
Or don't pick up the VHS. It was a Media Home Entertainment for $22.
Now it's time for awards. Let's give out some awards.
Awards, okay.
So what we do, we give out awards. I'll throw out some for the 3 different movies.
Oh, okay.
If there's
And
best
don't
film,
and don't
if there's
worry, Joe, because I don't know anyone's name that's in any role, so I just say, "Oh, that chick in that role."
Okay, so let's start with best lead actor.
Okay. I just have to ask right away. I'm sorry. I don't mean to just jump in, but I'm so excited about Henry Hull's performance.
I think that would be supporting actor.
Okay, so that's supporting. Okay, fine.
Okay, so but Roger, since you want to start, continue.
Well, if it's best actor, then it's probably Edward Albert.
Yeah, I would go
because
Edward
as
Albert.
a child actor, giving a performance of that depth for me.
Yeah, I agree.
And the fact that when he looks at the camera and speaks to the camera, it doesn't break the movie.
As a matter of fact,
he holds it together still.
I would say even of all the performances we saw in the 3 different movies, the acting thing that stays with me, not a line reading thing, but the acting thing is just his possessed face during the revival tent scene.
That's a lot for a child actor to do.
Yeah, and he was fantastic. It makes me want to go on a whole Edward Albert kick. All right,
Let's do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what I want to watch is, because we're big Susan George fans here, we'll watch The House Where Evil Dwells, which is Edward Albert, Susan George, and Doug McClure.
Oh, Doug McClure!
And it's a ghost movie that takes place in Japan, and there's eroticism involved.
It's fantastic.
Wow, it hits all of our marks.
It hits all of our marks. Okay, what about you, Gal?
No, I agree. I think also, for me, it was, though, his line reading, because he has this one line at the beginning of The Fool Killer where he says, like, it's not like getting spanked and getting beat that hurts you, it's the shame that gets you.
Yeah.
And that set me up for the entire movie.
Yeah, it's an incredibly well-written and deep line, which should probably really bring us to best screenplay, actually, because a Fool Killer, as far as I was concerned,
Fool Killer
easily
wins best screenplay.
Easily.
Yeah.
Morton Fine and David Friedkin.
Oh, you're not going to give it to the he can't sail with that shoulder line? That's not what we're doing here.
I don't think,
from a novel.
As much as I like that movie, I don't think I like that part as much as you do.
If you want to do a separate award for
best line,
great line,
you're allowed.
Well, we usually give out a best line, even though it's not an official award. Yeah. All right,
it's official.
The Fool Killer.
Well, no, it usually ends up not being official. All right, we just keep repeating it a zillion times until obviously it won.
I think The Fool Killer, though, is definitely the best script out of the 3.
Yeah. No, it's
from the novel by Helen Eustace.
The dialogue is just fantastic in this movie. Okay, so then when it comes to best actress, I'll start. Okay, to me, I think Wilkie Vamaro.
I agree.
Amalrui.
Are we going to disagree on anything this episode? I feel like the awards, we all just agreed just straight out.
No, once I'm gone, you can go back to fighting.
This is pretty clear. We're
choosing the anchors. We're choosing the anchors of these particular films.
I also liked Ashley Porter's sleepy-eyed amateur performance.
Yeah.
No, don't change your vote. Don't change your vote.
I'm not. I'm just.
Leave your dad alone.
I'm just
let him express himself.
I'm just shooting her a little bit of juice, just because.
Leave your old man alone.
I actually appreciated it, but I would still give it to Vilica.
Vote her for supporting actress.
Okay, I'll do that.
Yeah. I think you could do that.
I'll do that. But even though she's not as good as
the other girls,
the other girls, yeah, exactly. But there's such a thing about being a lead performance is leading. You lead. Yeah. You put a movie, you put a narrative on your back, and your legs are strong enough to go down into the earth, so there's roots. And then you carry a movie, you lead it, and that's not just a thing. And in both of these cases, the young actor and then the actress, they're anchors. They carry the whole movie.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
They pull you through the film in a lovely way.
So what about Best Supporting Actress then?
Okay, so Best Supporting Actress. I had initially Franca Heimermann, all right, who played Olga, the mostly naked one. All right. But partly that was because I had forgot how good the little girl was in The Fool Killer.
Sydney Ann Richards.
Sydney Ann Richards.
With the boil on her butt.
So as much as I like Olga, I think I'm going to have to go with Sydney Ann Richards for Best Supporting Actress.
I agree.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. How did she get the boil on her butt?
I don't know.
She's just born with it.
Okay, so then now we'll see if we all stay in line. We already know that Roger picks Henry Hull, all right, for Best Supporting Actor. I pick Henry Hull for Best Supporting Actor.
I pick him.
Oh, God. Today we're all in line. Joe Dante has brought order to our court.
Yeah. The stars are in alignment. Yeah, Henry Hull is incredible. And his delivery of the dialogues by Morton
You just
Fine
a plain old fool.
You're just a plain old fool.
It's... Yeah, I mean, it's a great performance. It's fantastic delivery.
Okay, guys, let's do Best Director.
I think Vim did a good job, but I would still vote for Servando.
Mm-hmm. I'm the same. I want to vote for Vim de la Pera, but I have to go with Servando González because the guy is a virtuoso. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's clear that he's doing things with the camera that are simply outside of what he should be able to do, and he's doing them with ease and grace, and it's just it's incredible to watch. And when you see his other work, or at least another one of his films, you realize, wow, this guy was a visual stylist and a storyteller of unusual perspective.
Well, I actually think the directing of both The Fool Killer and My Nights with Susan and Sandra, blah blah blah, they're very comparable. Yeah, they're very comparable to each other. They both do a very good job, and they both feed into their strengths.
They take what they're doing very seriously.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Pin. All right, simply because you guys have gone with the other guy, and I liked it. I could go with the other guy, but I like Pin as much in his own way. Even though there might be things about The Fool Killer, but I'm going to go with My Nights. How about you?
I still think that Servando González gets Best Director. I think his camera work is excellent. I think that his vision is what elevates the movie into being good. And
plus, on top of it all, he was fighting these producers.
Yeah.
Clearly, he was wrestling with them, struggling. Yeah. They were against him. They're like, no upside down shots. And he's like, no, you don't understand. It must be upside down. And they're just not listening to him.
Okay, best film.
Well, I have to go with The Fool Killer because Joe Dante's here. No, I'm kidding. I have to go with The Fool Killer because My Nights it really resonated with me. I really do love the movie, and so
I was very pleased to discover a movie I had never heard of, and a director I never heard of, an actress I never heard of, and how I was just really pleased, even under the circumstances, with learning about that movie. But I've harbored a yen for The Fool Killer since I saw it years ago. So that would be my pick. Go with the director.
How about you?
I'm going to go with My Nights with Susan, Sandra, Olga, and Julie. It was the movie that surprised me the most. I totally thought I was going to not like it. I mean, I like exploitation. Quentin knows I like exploitation films. I like nurses. I like LA. So I kind of thought that was going to be my jam this time. But no, I was really pleasantly surprised with this movie.
You know, it's funny because I think if you were to ask me after we watched the three movies together, I would have come from the same idea that The Fool Killer and My Nights were very similar. And I probably would have thrown my lot in with My Nights. But I actually enjoyed us talking about The Fool Killer. All right, a lot. And I think we ended up having, it's one of those kind of conversations where we ended up having a lot to say, and it just underlined the discoveries you had about the movie. It made the film seem even richer than from when we were first watching it. And so I guess I'm going to go with The Fool Killer.
Okay.
Woohoo!
And I guess that brings us to the end of our episode. We want to thank our customer, Joe Dante.
Thank you for letting me in the store.
Thank you.
Get out.
And by the way, when a customer comes down here, they got to commit to some time. They got to come another day and watch the movies with us.
It's a chunk of your life to do so.
It's just not a thing. Or it is a thing. I want to thank Roger.
Thank you.
I want to thank Gala.
You're welcome.
I want to thank our engineers and our producers. Hello, guys. Say hello. And I'm Quentin Tarantino.
And I'm Roger Avery.
And I'm Gala Avery.
And I'm not here next week.
Be kind, rewind.
See you next time.
Talk, talk.
Once there was a boy who left the bed he slept in, and he ran away 'cause he felt life was cruel. A killer of fools was walking close behind him. The boy was afraid that he'd be thought a fool.
The Video Archives podcast is hosted by Quentin Tarantino and Roger Avery and produced by Josh Richmond and Gala Avery. Our engineer is Devin Torrey Bryant, and our executive producers are Colin Anderson and Natalie Muellen. Find out more about the show by heading to videoarchivespodcast.com. You can also find us on Twitter @Video Archives and on Instagram @Video Archives Pod.
Like you.
Have you ever wanted to hear Mick Garris discuss the differences between original source material and the movies they become? Or Joe Russo's favorite gateways into horror? What about author Max Brooks and how he thinks that Minecraft will literally save humanity? Join me, reporter on the beat Gala Avery, as I get to the bottom of these topics on my new show, The Gala Show. In this weekly podcast, guests from Los Angeles and beyond have 30 minutes on the clock to bring whatever topic they want to the mic. So, tune in every Thursday for a new guest with an entirely new topic. The first episode drops October 26th, available wherever you get your podcasts.